This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Linode, high-performance cloud hosting for everyone. Visit linode.com/MacVoices and take $20 off your first server package. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we've been really busy, and our guest has been really busy, but we finally got him corralled for part of an afternoon to tell us about two of his latest efforts. Mr. David Sparks is back to talk about two of the new Mac Sparky Field Guides. David, good to
Chuck.
see you.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for being here. I know you're busy with the day job kind of thing, but I definitely wanted to get you on to talk about both these books because I think they're both, a lot of us have some of us, not everybody, you and I don't, but some of us have a little more time on our hands. And this is a great way to get up to speed on some of these programs.
Yeah, I just love making the field guides. It's so fun. And I love hearing from people that are using them. So the Keyboard Maestro one was a very popular release I did last year. I just did a big update for it. Well, I guess sort of big. I think I added like 40 minutes of content to it and, a bunch of new stuff in there. And then the one I've been working on for like 6 months, I was finally able to get out the door, and that's the new Photos Field Guide.
So let's start with the Keyboard Maestro one, because that's been out for a little while. You said you added 40 new minutes of it. Was that as far as like additional training, advanced training, something that had to do with the update to the program?
Yeah, they did an update to the program, so there was a bunch of new features, and I covered all those. I got really into the Stream Deck. I don't know if my cord's long enough. I can't reach it with the cord. But Stream Deck, if you look on Amazon, it's a really cool little device that they made for streaming. And the guys who are like gaming streamers use them, where you can push a button and start recording and do different things. But Keyboard Maestro has a trigger now where you can tie it to a button on the Stream Deck. And the Stream Deck is just a panel of buttons. And the back of the Stream Deck is a little screen. So you can actually program in the buttons. So like I have a button that when I want to just focus on my most important work, it says do, D-O with a period. And it's got a little Yoda head, like it's very Yoda. I'm Star Wars, right? So I press that button and it closes all my windows. It opens up just the apps that I need to do my work in. And it's kind of like a focus mode, but I use Yoda for it. But so I programmed the button with the button to look the way I want to and to say what I want it to say. And then also just totally, scramble my computer in a way that works for me and gives me my work mode. So I did a whole section on, if you get the Stream Deck, how do you program the buttons? How do you put the graphic images on the buttons? And how do you tell Keyboard Maestro, when I push this button attached to my computer, I want it to do a whole bunch of cool stuff?
So did you get the big Stream Deck or the little Stream Deck?
Chuck, I must admit, I got the big one. I have 4 rows of buttons. So currently I have filled up 3 of them, and I'm going to be doing some stuff, some actual streaming for Field Guide customers. I've been threatening to do this for like 6 months, and with the pandemic, I got set behind a little bit. But I'm going to start doing free, monthly Zoom calls with a bunch of people that bought, like I'm going to do one on Keyboard Maestro. So if you bought the Field Guide, we can get on the phone for an hour with a group of other people that are enthusiasts and talk about it. So I'm going to use that last row of buttons for actual streaming stuff. The thing was made for, but everything else attached to it now are Keyboard Maestro scripts.
So first off, I'd have been disappointed in you if you got the little one. But also I will put links in the show notes to make sure people know what we're talking about here, what Stream Deck is, so they can appreciate just how cool this is and what they can do with it.
Yeah, it is really fun. And since mine is sitting on my desktop computer, and a lot of people get them in their bags, and that's a good reason to get a smaller one. But I figured if it's going to take up space on my desktop, I might as well just get all the buttons. So mine has, I believe, 32 buttons on it, and it's just great. And I very quickly found uses for it. Like I have one, my jazz button. It's a saxophone, and I push it, and then it starts randomly playing jazz from my music library. So it's cool that you can make your computer dance for you. And I know that you can do all this stuff with keyboard shortcuts on your keyboard. I mean, the whole point of Keyboard Maestro is allow you to do that. Keyboard Maestro has a really cool feature called palettes, which if you use palettes, there's no reason to need a Stream Deck. But still, it's just kind of cool to sit down and press a button and have things happen. I
This
mean, there's almost a productivity angle to it. The context shifting of pressing that button to me really means something, you know.
Well, and it seems a little bit strange coming from a guy who wrote a Mac Sparky Field guide on shortcuts. That
Yeah,
said, however, that I do understand it, and I think any of us geeks will. That there's something about having that button to push that
yeah,
it's irresistible.
yeah, yeah. Agreed.
So, David, how what kind of learning curve? I mean, I know that the Mac Sparky Field Guide makes it a lot easier, but Keyboard Maestro has always struck me as just something that takes a little while to kind of get up and running and really appreciate how to do it. Am I missing something, or is there just a little bit of a learning curve to it to get
No,
really get it to do
I mean,
something?
I feel like of all the like user-friendly automation tools, Keyboard Maestro can have the steepest on-ramp. Like if you just open the app up, you're not sure what you're supposed to do with it. And honestly, that's the reason I made a field guide for it. I started very basic, and then I just try to ramp it up slowly to more advanced stuff. And I think there's something I want to say, I know there's at least 5 hours. There's probably 6. I just don't remember offhand how many hours of video there are in this. But if you look at the field guide, you can get there. You know, you just start with the basics and work your way up. And then the trick with automation is to solve a problem. You know, find something that's a problem for you and solve it. Like I have a thing where I send out bills with a web-based service, and they have this weird issue where like you need to hit one field on the screen, then the tab key, and then you need to press a button, but the button isn't activated on a tab. You know how some good websites, if you hit the tab key, you can get to a button. This website isn't like that. And I've been doing this for years this way, and it just drives me nuts every time. And just yesterday, I was sending some bills out, and I made a Keyboard Maestro script. There's one of the power features in Keyboard Maestro is you can take a little screenshot of something on the screen. So I took a little screenshot of the OK button or the send button. And, you know, you do that, was it Command Shift 4? Everybody, you know, that little trick on any Mac, if you hit Command Shift 4, you can draw, you get a crosshair and you can draw, you can drag it and click a section of the screen. So I took a screenshot of that little button. Then I told Keyboard Maestro, when I run this script, I want you to find that button on the screen and click once in the center of it, you know. And then I combine that with some tab keys and some key presses. Now all I'll do is hit one button and then it fills out the field. It hits the tab key. It goes and finds the send button and it clicks it for me. You know, just a manual thing that I've been doing for years, you know, many times every month. And I finally got around to automating it. And I guess that's my long way of saying automation works when you find a problem you need to automate.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And I think that's something that may be half the training is, teaching people to realize that there are certain things, and not just one key press, but certain little paths that you run to get to a place or accomplish something. And once you identify that, then, okay, now all of a sudden I have a motivation to learn something like Keyboard Maestro, to stop having to, do those 5, 6, 7 steps and just do one key press, or in the case of the Stream Deck, one button push, and, it's done for me.
Yeah. And I think the trick with Keyboard Maestro is it has an abundance of riches. You know, there's two pieces of any automation. There's the trigger and there's the action. And this is true for shortcuts as well. You know, what starts the automation? And then once you start the automation, what does it do? And the problem with Keyboard Maestro is a lot of people don't know the triggers and they don't know the available actions. And in the case of Keyboard Maestro on the Mac, if you get advanced enough, the available actions are basically anything. They can do basically anything. So you just need to learn what those are. So the point of the field guide, at least 2 sections of the field guide, literally takes every available trigger and every available action, and it's got like a 2 to 5 minute video on saying this is what this action is and this is how you make it work. So then once you have this collection of toys and you see a problem, then you say, oh, okay. Like for instance, one of the triggers that's cool, I think, in Keyboard Maestro is looking at what the Wi-Fi network is you're on. Because if you have a laptop and you go to work, When you connect to the work Wi-Fi, that's a trigger. And when you go home and you connect to your home Wi-Fi, that's also a trigger. So you could say, when I get to work, open up my calendar app to my work calendar and show me my work email, and open up my OmniFocus database to my work tasks, and just do that because you know that I'm on my work Wi-Fi. And when I go home, turn all that stuff off and open up Netflix or, whatever it is that you do when you go home. And once you understand that that trigger exists, then you can just make it, work however you want. And that's the cool stuff. I sound like I'm shilling my book too much, but I really get excited about automation, I have to admit.
No, not at all. In fact, that's one it makes perfect sense. And, I think about it with my iPhone, but I really don't think about it with my Mac. That, I could have certain things happen automatically just by opening the lid to my MacBook Pro. So that's a great example. I mean, because I run into a lot of people that say, gee, I don't do that much, so automation's not for me. And it's like, well, of course you do. You type things repeatedly. You type your name over and over. You type your address, your phone number. There are all kind of things that you realize just how often you do these things, and there are ways to do them faster and easier. So that's a great example. That's a great example.
And another good Wi-Fi one I use, and I think I include this one. I did include in the book sample because in addition to showing you the triggers and the actions, I also have a whole bunch of just useful automations I built, and you can download them and just use them, or you can modify them. But one of mine is you look for the Wi-Fi, and if the Wi-Fi includes the word Starbucks, then you do something else. Like you can open your VPN app to secure your Wi-Fi, and you can turn on the thunderstorm audio track so you can put your headphones on and not have to listen to everybody talking at Starbucks. And you can just make it work however you want. And I find it fascinating. And Keyboard Maestro is really powerful. I mean, I wish that Shortcuts had the same power Keyboard Maestro does.
And even though we started out by saying Keyboard Maestro has a bit of a learning curve, I feel like there's less of a learning curve with that than with something like some of the built-in Mac OS automations.
Sure. Well, the problem with Automator is it never got far enough. Shortcuts on iPhone and iPad are what Automator should have become, but I just feel like Apple never bought into it entirely. And AppleScript is great, but AppleScript is a much steeper learning curve than something like Keyboard Maestro.
Yeah. This Mac Voices is sponsored by Linode, your solution for when you need a virtual server in the cloud. Need a virtual cloud server like now? Linode has you covered. You can deploy a new server customized to your purpose with the features you want in seconds. Time is money, and if you have that immediate need, Linode is there. And even if you don't need your new server that quickly, Linode is there. And these aren't just any servers. These are SSD-based 40 gigabit network, high-performance processor-powered servers that are capable of web hosting, distributed applications, hosted servers, and more. Pick from a simple $5 per month Nanode plan, or ramp the whole way up to a high-powered dedicated CPU. When you need to upgrade as your requirements demand, that upgrade is a click away. To make some deployments even easier, there's a host of one-click installs available, from Minecraft to WordPress. Need to locate your server in a particular location for either performance or legal reasons? No problem. Linode has servers all over the world. Perhaps most important, though, is their pricing. No surprises, no hidden costs. You pay for what you need, and you pay for what you use on an hourly basis. No data transfer fees like some of the larger cloud services. It's your data. Why would you expect to pay to access it? With Linode, you don't. These are just a few of the features that Linode brings to the table. I want you to visit linode.com/MacVoices right now and see what all the fuss is about. Again, linode.com/MacVoices takes $20 off your first server package. You've been thinking about that virtual server of your own for a long time. Make it happen today with Linode. Thanks to Linode for their support of MacVoices. All right, so let's shift over to the more recent one, and what it sounds like the one that got a much bigger update, and that's the Photos Field guide.
Yeah, I made a Photos Field guide like 5 years ago when Apple first released Photos, and it has changed so much that I just built it all over from scratch. And this new one is just shy of 6 hours. It's 123 videos, and the reason this one took so long is that halfway through production, I realized I need to make 2 field guides because I was talking to people who are interested in this title, and some of them are like, hey, this is great, but I only use my iPad and iPhone. And then I talked to other people who are like, I only want to do my editing on my Mac. And I realized that every tool in this app has a little bit of a different implementation. I can't just say, well, this is how you resize a photo on the Mac, and it's kind of the same on the iPhone. It's not, it's a totally different kind of procedure. So I literally made 2 field guides. I just combined them into one because I didn't want to charge people twice. It seemed dumb, but so it's 2 field guides in one. There's a whole set of videos on the iPad and iPhone, and a whole set of videos on the Mac, and it goes soup to nuts on Apple Photos, and it also goes into taking pictures because I felt like if you're going to be working with photos, you should also get a better idea of how to take pictures with your iPhone. And there's just so many things you can do with the iPhone taking pictures that so many people don't know about. So I took apart all the different things you can do with photos too.
I can't believe it's been 5 years since we talked about the Photos Field Guide.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I think that's right, though. I mean, whenever they released Photos is when the first version was 2 hours, and this one's almost 6. It's just an entirely new thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, after that much time, because when I saw this, I thought, didn't David just release a Photos Field Guide? This must be just a little update. But if it's been 5 years, then it's got to be a big update.
Yeah, and the good thing is now I'm over on that new platform. So, like after WWDC, I fully intend to update this one with a free update with whatever they add to Photos for 2020. But the old one wasn't in a place I could update it. But so it's just it came out great. I'm hearing from lots of people who are using this field guide who are not my usual customers, which is kind of exciting because I mean, there's only so many people that want to write Keyboard Maestro scripts, I have to admit. I mean, I'm a nerd. I like them, but not everybody does. But everybody's taking pictures with their phone. So this is the most gifted field guide I've ever released, where people are buying copies for their spouses or their mom or whatever for people to try and get them up to speed on photos. And it's been really fun to see, the feedback from folks who don't normally watch, video learning courses.
So after having built 2 field guides that you then rolled into one, where do you prefer to do your editing? On your Mac or on your phone or iPad?
I have to admit, I prefer the iPad. I love the Apple Pencil and the iPad for editing photos. I mean, it's relaxing for me. It's almost like, it's like sit on the couch with an iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil and just make your pictures look great. That's probably my preferred way. I do plenty of edits on the Mac, if I'm sitting there. I mean, I feel like I'm not preferential to, too many people in the Apple community are like, I'm team iPad or I'm team Mac. I'm team both, I'm bilingual. I can do the edits anywhere, but I really do kind of enjoy the process on the iPad. I think there's something visceral about having your hands on the image, and the iPad screens are just so good. It's hard not to like your pictures on that screen.
Yeah, I would agree with that. How about editing on the iPhone though? I mean, obviously it's a smaller screen.
Jam.
Yeah,
but in a Jam I can do that. Yeah. Yeah, one of the challenges with this field guide, Chuck, is I had all these video shoots planned for Disneyland, because I live near Disneyland. We're pass holders. If you listen to the Mac Power Users, I'm talking about how I go there all the time, and everybody makes fun of me about it. But, it's been shut down, and I was just getting in production to the point where I was going to start shooting all these videos of how to take pictures, and Disneyland shut down, But so we happened to have also bought a puppy about a month before everything hit. And the reason is because my kids are off at school, my wife's at work, and I was home all the time. I just wanted a little friend, But now everybody's home because of the pandemic. So it's great, though. All of us can help with this puppy. But anyway, the puppy ended up being the star of the Photos Field Guide. So you'll see lots of pictures of my dog. And if you don't like dogs, I'm sorry. But there are a lot of dog pictures in there. But my point is, a lot of times you would take the pictures with your phone, and if you want to send it off to somebody, I could make a quick edit on the phone too. I mean, Apple's done a really good job of kind of pulling photos up on every platform. There are some variances, interestingly, like the way you can flip photos is easier on iPhone and iPad. Like you can actually change the perspective of a photo. The video editing tools on iPhone and iPad are way more powerful than they are on the Mac. I'm hoping that changes later this month after WWDC. And there are certain things, and some things are a little easier on the Mac too. But overall, there's a lot of feature parity between these platforms.
Okay, I want to come back to they're more powerful, but I want to save us both a bunch of emails. What kind of dog did you get? Because people want to know.
It's a Labradoodle. So she's
Okay.
part Labrador, part Poodle. And 90% of the time, she's the best dog in the world. And 10% of the time, she's the worst dog in the world.
Isn't that like all dogs, cats, cows,
Yeah,
monkeys,
I
whatever?
think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah. Okay, so let's go back to the photo editing. So when you say more powerful, do you mean more accessible or honest to God more powerful?
More powerful. I mean, the most prominent version of this is video edits. So on the phone and the Mac for years, we've had some very powerful tools. If you're familiar with the history, we had iPhoto and then we had Aperture, and then one day we had Photos. And Photos was a combination of them, and it was definitely not up to the power of Aperture, but it was an improvement over iPhoto. And Apple had to really just start with a new common denominator, an app that was on both platforms. And I can understand why they did it, but a lot of people were cranky at the beginning because they'd lost some of the features that were key to them. Well, over the intervening years, Apple's been adding those features back. And there's a bunch of stuff now that you can do on edits to photos and on iPhone and iPad and Mac that you could never do with iPhoto before. So it's better in a lot of ways. But then last year, Apple pushed some magic button and said, yeah, all those edits you can do to your photos on the iPhone and iPad, like changing it to black and white or making the colors more like color correction. You remember, color correction is something people used to pay thousands of dollars for a specialized app to do color correction. Well, now color correction's on the iPhone and iPad, and it's real time. You press a button and you immediately see the color correction applied. It's super powerful, but you can't do that on the Mac. They don't have that tool set enabled on the Mac for video. So that's what I'm talking about. That's the most, like I said, I think that's the most dramatic difference. And my guess is they're working on it for the Mac too, and they just didn't get there in time for 2019. And who knows this year? I think with everything that's been going on in the world, I think we probably will have a pretty conservative update this year. But I hope that those features come over to the Mac this year.
David, you bring up video, and so I have to ask: does the Photos Field Guide cover the video parts of photos?
Yeah, there's a whole section on video. Yeah. Actually, there's two sections, one for the Mac and one for the iPhone and iPad. How to organize it, how to edit it, how to share it. I mean, really, Photos is a video solution now. It's not necessarily the end-all, be-all. Like if you want to do very advanced things, you may need to export to an external app. But then, like I just said, you can do color correction now in the Photos app on video, so long as you're on a mobile platform.
So, I mean, I guess editing video, that's something that I do and you do a lot of. So I'm going to assume it's not a replacement for something that's a lot more powerful for doing something like what we do. But for most people, just to take the front end, the back end off, maybe add a little text, do a little tweaking, and then send it to social media, it's more than adequate.
Yeah, getting back to my dog. She jumped off the couch and it was hilarious, but I happened to shoot it in slow-mo, and the iPhone takes great slow-mo. So I took that, I did all the edits on color correction, and I trimmed the clip and set the slow-mo in the Photos app. Then I exported it to iMovie on the phone, and I put in Elton John's Rocket Man behind it, just as she was leaping off. And then I shared that. So that's an example. I was able to get the video exactly where I wanted to. I couldn't lay Rocket Man behind it without getting it out of the app. So it just depends on what you're doing. But for basic stuff, it's super, competent to handle that stuff.
And I've loved to point out the fact that that's the kind of thing that you start to do, and then you decide, okay, now I want to take another step. And so it's a gateway to getting you into some of the more advanced applications or other applications
Yeah.
that you start
Yeah.
something and it's very approachable. And I've done this, I really like this, but if I could just do this, well, how do I do it? And you go and start looking for those solutions. Meanwhile, even if you can't do it right then, you've got a very useful piece of footage that you want to share with people.
Yeah. Another thing that it's very good at is sharing. I mean, they've done a really good job of giving you so many ways to share your photos and video with other people from either platform. I mean, one of the features that I called out, I also did videos on using photos with the watch and Apple TV because it's actually on those platforms. And something that really stands out for me that Apple has really delivered the goods for in the last few years is memories. And if you look at traditionally the purpose of photo organization, I mean, when you and I grew up, we had a shoebox in the house somewhere with a bunch of pictures, and we'd look through it. And I even talked about this in the field guide, how when I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money, and for whatever reason, we weren't super into photography. So my parents would usually buy a roll at the beginning of the year. And then around Christmas, they'd buy another roll, and like every year, if you look at my family pictures, there's like one picture of me standing in front of a cake, in February, and one picture of my sister with a pile of presents in January. And then there's a picture with one picture at Easter and one picture at Halloween. I mean, we just took like one or two pictures for each one of these events. And, Lord knows if the picture was going to be exposed right, because those old cameras. But then we got a whole roll of Christmas images. But now the problem with photography is that we can take so many pictures. My wife was sitting on the floor with the dog, and it was really cute. And I was taking some pictures of her, and I shot like 30 pictures of her as we were sitting there. Whereas in the old days, you wouldn't have even taken that picture. So we've got this massive library. My library is 50,000 images. How do you find a good picture? And I think Apple has looked at that problem with photos, and they've said, okay, let's help people find their pictures. And one of the things they've done is this feature called Memories. And Memories will look at a group of pictures at a certain location. Let's say you've gone to Seattle 2 or 3 times. It will collect those for you and pick what it thinks are the best pictures, and even make a little movie for you. Or it'll make a memory based on a person or an event or a time of year or a location. And it just kind of spontaneously generates these memories. And I cover this in the field guide, but I think this is a really amazing thing for people who don't know how to look at their pictures, how to find something to be interested to them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like what Apple has done is it's made them, not only does it make them easier to share, but it makes them easier for you to enjoy, because it's tagging them by location and by season. And you're right, the memories pop up, and it's like, yeah, gee, that it takes me away from whatever I was doing, which is not always a good thing. But I get the enjoyment out of those photos that when they're under the bed in that shoebox, they don't do anybody any good.
Yeah, and if you have an Apple TV and you just put the Photos app on it, I think it actually ships on the Apple TV. You can just leave it on that Memories tab, and sitting around with your family, you can have a really good time looking at a bunch of albums. Like my mother-in-law will come over and look at that for hours, just of pictures, because it auto-generates a movie. It does like the Ken Burns effect, where it slides over and fades through and puts some music to them. That's very entertaining for people. And I think Apple doesn't get enough credit for helping us solve this new problem, which is, okay, it's great that you can edit and you can hold all my pictures, but help me find some good ones. And I think they've done a pretty good job with that.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to make sure I ask if you cover using Photos and iCloud together in the book.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I would think so.
It's so important. It's such an important piece of it. I feel like if someone made me Tim Cook for a day, said, look, you get to change one thing at Apple, I'm going to give you a magic wand. It only works once. You can change one thing. What would it be? Anybody that listens to Mac Power Users has heard me on this rant before, so I apologize. But I would make it so if you buy an iPhone, every picture you take on your iPhone is automatically backed up to iCloud. There's no $3 a month charge, I feel like it's that little charge. Even, I mean, for some people, it's only $1 a month, $3 a month, maybe $10 if you have a lot of pictures, but they add on that extra charge to make the iCloud photo backup work. And I think they do such a disservice to themselves and their customers because the most precious thing on your phone is probably your pictures, you know? And wouldn't it be great if we knew that if we buy this $1,000 phone, it's just handled for us? We don't have to worry about the nickel and dime. And I don't mind. I recommend people pay the fee because it's so important. But just think of how many people, lose their pictures because they drop it in a lake and they weren't willing to pay that $1 a month, and now they've just lost their pictures. And that's a problem, really, ultimately, that Apple's responsible for.
Well, now you did your rant, I do mine. That we turn on the TV news in the morning and there's a tornado, there's a hurricane, there's a flood, there's an earthquake. Yeah. And the first thing, that the people they're interviewing say is, "Oh my God, I lost all my pictures." And yeah. That's, they aren't worried about the TV or the stereo or the car. They're worried about their pictures. And so you don't really appreciate just how important those are until they're gone. So I agree with you completely. Pay the money; it's well worth it. Pay the money; it's well worth it.
I the more I think about it, I just don't think this is Apple being cheap. I think they probably just don't have the capacity for it. It's like if you take everybody that owns an iPhone in the world and back up all those pictures, it's got to be a massive amount of data. And with was $150 billion in the bank or whatever, it's not like they need the money. So I don't know. I feel like it's probably a capacity problem more than it's a nickel and dime problem. But either way, boy, I would put all effort into fixing that because that is extraordinarily frustrating. I mean, you and I'm sure I hear from listeners that go through this, and it just breaks my heart every time, when they write me and say, "Well, I lost my pictures and I didn't have the iCloud backup, so I don't get them." I don't know what to say.
Yeah, how many times have we both gotten emails from people that they don't have backups? Forget the iCloud; they don't have a backup of their phone or the photos they've saved on their computers, and they say, "Well, I've got to get them back." And it's like, when it's gone, I mean, when the glass is broken, and you're not going to put it back together. And it's sorry.
Yeah, I cover backup in the Photos Field Guide. There's a video on backing up on a Mac, which is actually quite easy. If you have a Mac, it's really easy to make a duplicate copy of your library or use a cloud service. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can back up, external to Apple. Although I still think you should use Apple. I also covered backing up on the iPhone and iPad. And if you're on the iPhone and iPad alone, it's actually quite difficult because there really isn't an easy way to just copy your library off your iPhone. So I did a bunch of tests, and ultimately what I found the best solution, if you're only on iPhone and iPad with your pictures, is to back up, get an iCloud account, but also get a Dropbox or an Amazon account. Get one of these other cloud-based backups. Have at least two, belt and suspenders for your cloud backups.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, find a way to back up whatever it is that you need to back up, because that just is so important. Yeah. So the field guides are available now, and it's learn.macsparky.com.
Yeah.
That's where you go to get them.
They're on the website. The introductory pricing is just about to end on the Photos Field Guide. So I'm going to add a separate discount code. What are we going to say? Chuck loves photos. You want to say Chuck loves photos?
That works.
Chuck loves photos. Get you $5 off to the end of June. How about?
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I also definitely don't want to get out of here without having you just mention all the other places they can find you. It's not just at learn.macsparky.com. You do one or two other things.
Yeah. If you go to macsparky.com, that's like my home base on the internet. But the in addition to the field guides, which are learned out MacSparky, the other two places you'll find me is over at Relay FM. I have 3 podcasts. One is the Mac Power Users, which is now over 500 episodes and been going a long time. We talk about all types of cool stuff there about Mac, iPhone, and iPad. Then I have the Automators show that I make with Rose Orchard, where we go super geeky. Like if you liked talking about Keyboard Maestro earlier, you should probably listen to the Automators. And the last one is Focused with me and Mike Schmitz, where we kind of talk about how to stay focused, which which I believe is the superpower of this century, staying focused.
Yeah, with all the distractions and everything, both current events and just in general, it seems like the world is built to distract us from what we need to do. So
yeah, it is tough.
Good point. And you and Mike are the ideal people to talk about that because you're both very focused.
Yeah. Well, we fail more. I think I fail more than I succeed, but that's part of the journey, right?
Exactly. Hey, David, thanks so much for being here and talking about both of these. I encourage everyone to go and check out those along with all the other Mac Field guides. They're a great way to learn a program from, even if you're just going from a standing stop, start there and then keep on going.
Yeah, my goal with all these is if you don't know anything about it, I'm going to get you there. I start very basic, but I get advanced as you get further on. And if you just go along with the journey, hopefully you'll get there.
Great. David, come back anytime. It's always a pleasure. I'm glad we were able to do this.
Thanks so much, Chuck. I really appreciate it. You have a great day and stay safe.
All right. Go take the Labradoodle for a walk.
Yeah, I know. I really need a haircut, though. I don't know. Look, this is the longest my hair has been in my life. I don't know what I'm going to do.
I hear you. Been there, done that. Yep. Take care.
Thank you.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. No kidding. This is one of my favorite ways to learn something new is the MacSparky Field Guide. So go check them out again at learn.macsparky.com. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.